Okay. See, we do have some attendees coming on. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for Terra Third Thursday. We are going to take the first couple of minutes to just give everybody the opportunity to log in, make sure that their headsets are working or that their audio is working, giving them a few minutes to finish up that last call and get their technology and their computers to work. We've all been there, so we'll start here at about 3:02 Eastern. So just give us just another minute and a half or so and we'll get started. So for those of you who this is your first time, again, we take a first couple of minutes just to allow some people to log in. And then everybody that is an attendee today will be on listen only mode. This session is being recorded. So if you would like to be answering, have some input in terms of asking some questions, use the chat feature, use the question feature. I'll be monitoring that during the course of the presentation today. Okay, looks we got some new people showing up here. We're going to get started momentarily. We just allow the first couple of minutes of the presentation to let some folks in who are stragglers or having technology issues. Make sure that they get in and don't miss anything. We'll get started here in just about 30 seconds. Make sure everything on my side, make sure everything is recording. Yes, we are recording. Okay, we're going to get started here. I'm sure we'll get some people to come in here over the next minute or so, but we're just going to go ahead and get going. We try to keep these things fast and informative and brief, so we're going to get moving. Thank you again for joining us for the Terra Third Thursday webinar. Here it is, the third Thursday. It's the 15th, which is kind of crazy that we're already at the third Thursday. I think it's the first time that's happened this year. So this is a special occasion for us. Typically, we don't do these in December. Our Terra Third Thursday webinar series usually goes from January to October. And November and December with the holiday season, we just kind of decide to put those on hiatus. But we had a really good speaker, a really good subject matter that we wanted to get to this year. So we went ahead and scheduled this, so we appreciate you guys joining us today. Again, for those of you who are regular attendees to this, you'll know that you're going to be on listen only mode. You'll be answering questions through our chat and questions feature that's part of your GoToWebinar control panel. But we use these sessions just to give you guys some quick news that you can use, informative information that hopefully will help you with your operations and your bottom line. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Tim Reichert with C2 Management, as he's going to be our host. And we're going to be here today talking about sustainability, ESG, and how net zero can help ITADs. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. As I was kind of alluding to, this is the last of our second year of our Terra Third Thursday webinar. It's hard to believe it's already year 2. So we'll be starting year 3 next month, third Thursday. We're going to be welcoming Recycle Global Exchange, RGX. They've got a really exciting online marketplace that's exclusive for e-scrap, for certified R2 and e-stewards, e-scrap and ITAD service providers. So you won't want to miss that. We've got some anniversaries to announce today. We've got Corporate E-Waste Solutions. It's their second year with us. Far West Metals, their second year. Lifespan International PCs for people, both celebrating their first year as Terra members. And then I am wearing, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but in honor of Avid Products, I'm wearing a headset today from them. Their logo's on this side. Anyhow, so they're one of our sustainer members, which is brands and municipalities and other organizations that utilize the services that you all provide that are kind of sponsoring us and help us accomplish our mission. Again, if you have any questions today, everyone's on listen only mode. Use the chat feature, use the questions feature. I'm monitoring that because I'm going to be on screen with Tim during this presentation, allowing him to talk about and educate you guys on things, but as opportunities to jump in and ask some questions arise, I will do that. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce my friend Tim Reichert. He is the Executive Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for C2. Tim is an expert in providing end-of-life services for IT and specialty equipment. His responsibilities include building an ecosystem of strategic partnerships to provide clients with a comprehensive range of professional services in the fields of net zero, environmental, social governance, sustainability, carbon accounting, etc. So we're very happy to have his expertise represented today. And he is, of course, representing our sponsor today, our presenting sponsor, which is C2 Management. They are an R2V3 certified organization based in Northern Virginia. They've been with us for a little over 2.5 years. So, thanks to them for being such, long-term partners of ours. I actually had the pleasure of touring their facilities this past Monday. So, feel free to, at the end of this, to find them in our membership directory. If you don't have one, contact me. I'll get you one. Reach out and say thank you and learn a little bit more about their operations. Their goal is to set the standard for reuse and recycling and ensure that their clients are protected from data and environmental liabilities. The company was founded in 1998 by Chris Hansen. So they are, the Mid-Atlantic, one of the Mid-Atlantic's largest providers of surplus assets recovery services with an established reputation for efficiency and reliability. And the C2, my understanding, that stands for cradle-to-cradle, which is part of the way they like to serve their clients from beginning to end. So with that, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully everybody can hear me loud and clear. You already did a great job, Steve, with the first slide, so we're already ahead of the game there. So C2, there's Chris and Sharon who founded the company, and they're our fearless leaders. As Steve mentioned, I'm involved with the strategic partnerships for C2 and helping build an ecosystem of other domain expertise which help feed more business into C2, and we can get into that more and more as we talk. But at a high level today, I'm looking at this discussion more from a business development, some things that we've been doing at C2 that have helped the company expand services, offer some new products and services, and overall being able to say yes more frequently. There's always those forks in the road that clients put in front of us where they say, hey, the scope of work, has all this IT, equipment over here. But you know what? We have a mixture of all these other things that we need to get rid of. Can you help us out? So over time, we've I think done a pretty decent job with R2, in particular going after Appendix D certification for specialty equipment. So one of the key things just from today that I'll say that makes C2 different or unique is that we really have a very good teaming culture, where if we can help you guys in any way, shape, or form say yes more frequently with part of a project that's really not in your wheelhouse, maybe it's that medical equipment, transportation equipment, industrial, etc. You just don't know quite what to do with it, but the client needs that part done as well. We would be happy to team up with you guys, and we'll stay in our lane and just do the part that you need done. But that's a big part of what we do at C2, and the more we can work within the R2 Terra environment and membership, I think everybody wins. So keep us in mind for that. So the focus today is going to be on, everybody's heard about sustainability, net zero, and ESG, but I don't know how many people have engaged it as a business opportunity as an R2 service provider. And what I wanted to kind of do a level set just to make sure, once you kind of dive deeper into each of these components, you'll see that there are some nuances, and within those nuances, you can have a better conversation with clients and kind of work your way maybe into some more business opportunities. And that's what we're trying to do at C2 is trying to ride this tidal wave of interest in these three areas. And you'll see that from an ITAD perspective, we have a very positive impact for any clients that are heavy into these three arenas. So We'll start off with sustainability and what it's all about. And in essence, this is really probably the broadest category. We've all heard about sustainability and going green, and essentially just talking about, how can businesses run with, in the present without compromising the future. And this gets into circular economies and recycling, reuse, and everything that everybody on this call is an expert in. So sustainability, I think, is pretty straightforward, but certainly a lot of clients have goals and are very active trying to improve their performance in this arena. When we talk about net zero, what it's about, this is something that last couple of years in particular, more and more governments, Fortune 1000 companies, et cetera, are making broad statements about being net zero by 2030 or 2040. And they make these statements almost like a big part of their marketing of, hey, we're a great company, buy from us. The challenge that we're finding in net zero is, they really don't know where they are. They don't know where their emissions are. They have a very difficult time even tracking their own emissions. Not to mention tracking and putting in a plan to get to net zero. So this is where, it's a state of where the greenhouse gases that a company's internal and external efforts are going into the atmosphere are being balanced and removed out of the atmosphere. So there's what's called scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Scope 1 emissions you'll see in the middle. This is really, you think of it as the internal emissions that are generated by a company as they're operating. This will be, even down to their company-owned vehicles, the fuel that they use to, in their industrial processes, et cetera. Think of scope 1 as a company's inside burn rate, if you will, and emissions. Scope 2 is really where, how they're buying their electricity. Are they buying all renewables from solar and wind farms in the area? Are they buying off the grid? And if so, what's the grid mix, when you throw in all the different types of, coal, nuclear, wind, et cetera. So scope 2 is the emissions from those types of purchased electricity. And then scope 3 is an external look at all your vendors, people that produce the inputs, transporting those to you so you can, so people can, OEMs can build something. So scope 3 is very much the ecosystem around the company and all the emissions coming off from all those different pieces. As you can see, it's going to be very, very hard to get to scope 3 and getting all the vendors to report back on their specific emissions and rolling that up so you have a total carbon footprint picture. But that's kind of where companies are going. We're seeing, especially the large enterprise clients that I think most of us would like to do business with. So one thing that we're trying at C2 is getting a better sense of not only the emissions of scope 1 and 2 emissions, but trying to work with some of our key folks and starting to say, hey, we had to use a third-party vendor to truck some materials back to Virginia. Well, that's something that we can ask that third-party logistics company to say, how many miles was it diesel? Okay, there's a certain emissions profile that we can calculate and get our total carbon footprint. The reason why that's going to be important in the future for everybody on this call is if we can be one of the few companies that know our emissions, then the larger companies will work with our company, because let's say we're the only R2 vendor that actually has their emissions to report back in. So over time, vendors will be eliminated if they do not know their carbon footprint and can report on it accurately. So this is one thing that in the future we're all going to be impacted by. The last part is ESG and what it's about. This is a much more granular.
Hey Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought right there, but I meant to have a quick question on that last slide, which was, I've heard from not only your team but from a lot of our other members is that what tool out there is there available to you to be able to quantify some of this stuff? It's very difficult. I know, the eStewards team has put out some sort of a calculator that does some sort of CO2 emissions calculations. Other people have their own internal We've been actually approached by some people to should tackle that idea of doing that. But as you mentioned, this scope 3 is so broad. Where do you find tools to be able to help you with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So one of the things that people have to decide early on is, are they going to try to do this internally? Is it close enough to your wheelhouse where you want to divert some resources into having some internal expertise, or do you want to? And what we've done through with C2 is we've looked for strategic partnerships with ESG kind of companies that do that kind of consulting work. We have a relationship with a company called Lifecycle Sherlock, which I'm very familiar with and involved with as well. And so we went down that path. But there's everybody's probably familiar with Salesforce. One of the tools that's been launched by Salesforce recently is called Net Zero Cloud. You guys can look at that online. It is specifically designed to track emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And you can do that for your company as well as for your clients if they so desire.
Wow.
That's a tool that Lifecycle Sherlock has selected to use. The other thing, the EPA does have some tools and calculators and things online that can be accessed. One of the things that's pretty easy for companies to do to get at least start getting their scope 1 and 2 is you get your utility information, which is kind of your scope 2 inputs. You get your employees to share their mileage. If somebody's driving 15 miles into work or 20, you can actually track mileage in and get you get that part of your carbon footprint. We have certain folks that have virtual, they work out of the home 2 days a week, and they use their home office. Well, they say, hey, from a utility bill perspective, at my house I spend $2,000 a year. My office is 10% of the square footage, so we're going to say $200 a year of electric costs, and that's also added into the carbon footprint of operating the company as a scope 1 input. So we can look at it from that perspective, mileage, utility information, some of the basics there. And at least you can get your scope 1 and 2 under control. And as time goes by, that your scope 1 and 2 becomes the scope 3 for your clients. So everything kind of rolls up. And you just, Net Zero Cloud is a good tool that anybody can use.
Okay. And just one last thing before I let you continue, just getting some questions coming in here. Sean Miles shared, looks like a link to everybody. He's going to be our host next month. www.epa.gov/warm. So I'm assuming hopefully in there is some sort of a calculator. And Mike Schuler is asking about any metrics that you're aware of that relate to reuse versus recycling. Does it have an impact on the footprint?
Yeah, it does. That's a great point. And we're going to cover that a little bit. I have something I'll show you in one of the slides where we've taken some of the e-waste that's come through and been processed at C2, the different types of like laptops versus PCs versus what have you. And, there are ways to convert, those materials, especially those that have been reused, into emissions reductions and, carbon footprint reductions. So there are tools that the EPA has where you can plug in those figures. And it's some art and science, when you do it. That's why we work with energy managers that do this every day. But it is possible to convert that information. And that's one of the key parts of our talk today is, I would encourage everybody to start doing that because it really helps put our industry into a very unique consulting, data and data analytics position. And that creates some new service and new service opportunities that we can drive revenue from. So those are all very good points.
Excellent.
Yep. So fast forward to ESG, which is, fewer people are as familiar with ESG and the different components. I think the environment's one. Most people, they get that part. It's really about, what's the impact of the company and the company's activities on the environment. Then you have social, is when you're looking at what's the company's, how they operate. You start hearing about diversity, inclusion, equity, things along those lines is more in the social category. We have some impact that we can do with as R2s to help with that. And then governance, we actually have a very clear, ITADs have a very clear impact on governance, particularly data governance, with the data erasure and sanitization that has to be done with what we're handling. So today's talk will focus a little bit more on environment and governance and how we can weave that into our value proposition and our conversations with clients to be a part of the solution that they maybe aren't thinking of in that light. But once we clarify this, you'll see you'll get a lot more interest in our services when we start bringing in this language into how we talk about what we do. So is basically all this ESG, sustainability, net zero, is this really an important business opportunity? Well, the market trends are pretty clear on this. The answer is a resounding yes. You look at 86% of S&P 500 companies already are publishing their goals and the responsibility reports. Half the businesses out there surveyed actually have an ESG strategy. Over a third of the C-suite folks are actually getting more and more pressure from investors about what the companies are doing around ESG, because there's a lot of impact around investor. You hear a lot about BlackRock and all these other that have trillions of dollars under management, and they're starting to move their investment dollars only behind companies that have made sweeping adoptions of ESG objectives that are popular out there. So on and on and on. You got 600 of the world's largest businesses, talking about their greenhouse gas emissions, which again, that's 600, large companies that need a Terra member to help them. So
yeah.
There's a big opportunity.
But this is a bit of a wild west out there. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, especially from their electronics recycling side, there's not a whole lot of, like that's the tool that everybody should use. So like you said, it's all a little bit of art, it's all a little bit of science. But if you look at some of these sustainability reports from Procter & Gamble, some of these major corporations, and search for the word e-scrap, e-waste, you're not going to find it. It's a big opportunity for us in this industry to bring some relevance of this information back to our clients and kind of earn some stripes and some loyalty for a long time by helping them achieve some of these goals.
Absolutely, and I'm saying we're trying to talk through this today because we know it's helping us at C2, and we just really begun. So we're excited about where this is going, and we think that everybody on this call can really, if we're all doing it within the industry, it elevates the entire industry, and we can shape the narrative in our favor if we all start talking about it.
Just one more reason why certification matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of, you can see about, I talked a little bit about the investment. So the investment dollars going into, companies that are, fully into the ESG integration, you'll see that blue area is going up, more than any other, reason behind investments. ESG is really being pushed into these types of decisions. You got large banks actually saying, hey, we're going to stop funding new oil and gas fields because that's going against ESG. So the woke culture out there about, is really moving significant, like trillions of dollars around. So these companies are really feeling the pressure to go down this path. We just happen to be in the middle of it all, and it's going to help us in that regard. And I will say, for today's conversation, we're not really trying to get into any conversations about is this movement right or wrong, do you agree with it or not. I'm just trying to present what this means from a business opportunity standpoint. And we can save any debates for another day, but there's some positive impacts for everybody on this call. So I'll leave it at that. Now, as far as the for the social part of ESG, gets into diversity, equity, inclusion. It gets into things about, do people even want to work for certain companies? And what I thought was an interesting stat from a PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers survey that was done a couple of years ago, that says that 84% of the people, the talent out there, would rather work for a company that stands up for environmental causes. So what are you doing, or what is C2 management doing as far as attracting people? Well, if we can really champion that we're a big part of this environmental ecosystem, that should help us draw some talent in and retain them from going to a different type of environment. So Terra members really do have a positive story to tell that resonates well with talent out there.
And also, but for our Terra members, don't forget, every single one of our Terra members has an opportunity to connect with our Done With It program. And that's our mail-in recycling program. Offer that up to your clients. Provide, each one of you have a discount code to be able to give a 10% or 20% off of that program to anybody who uses it. So say, provide your clients' employees the opportunity to recycle their home stuff at home by mailing it in. It's just one more way to connect with that client, and one more way to provide some of what they're looking for back.
Absolutely. And and everybody on the call is probably really familiar with the e-waste side of things. Very, very strong metrics across the board as far as millions of metric tons, fast growth rate, et cetera, which is exciting. But I thought it was kind of interesting when you look at the example at the bottom, talking about just one iPhone 12 Pro in the carbon emissions, 110 kilograms over its lifetime. And you look at 110 kilograms, well, that's over 240 pounds. That's a lot of carbon emissions, considering that there's billions of mobile phones out there. So when you start converting that into metric tons of emissions reductions, that will significantly improve a company's efforts on their net zero journey. So all these metric tons, there isn't a company out there that makes anything that can get to net zero without buying, carbon offsets and credits, or without buying renewable energy and things like that. They can't energy efficiency themselves into a zero state, if you will. So they're going to have to start looking to buying, carbon credits. And there's a way that we can play a role in finding and basically proving out those carbon credits, and helping our clients, get to net zero by helping them find people who can sell carbon credits to them. So it's another thing that we can play an important role in. Maybe I'll show you something here in a few slides where companies like C2 Management. Let me see if I can go to that. Well, I'll share that slide in just a second. But it's a good example of what you can do within your own company to prove out the emissions reductions that you are creating by doing the work that you do to reuse and recycle effectively. The other part to the story for ITADs is the data privacy. Gartner was putting out some research that 75% of the world's population is going to have personal data covered under a privacy regulation. So 75% of the world's population, not just the U.S.
Wow.
That's the whole. This is a global phenomenon around data governance. So we're going to be looking at 80% of the companies. So almost every single person you talk with is concerned about data governance. So our data erasure and sanitization work that we do on e-waste is critically important. And there's a story behind it that we can put right back into our ESG discussions with our clients, and the role that we're playing to help them with the governance piece of their scores. And there are, if you're not aware, there are ESG reports and scoring that are done on companies that investors look at. So it's amazing that we've gone down the path of these types of scores for corporations, and those with a high score get money, and those who don't have to borrow money at a higher rate or not get any money at all. There's just a lot of pressure. So we have some very unique data that we maybe could not monetize in the past, but now we can. So this is maybe a new, kind of a service offering to do data capture and data analytics for our clients related to governance and feeding that information back to them.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that's important is talking about knowing what data to include in the ESG story. Helping our customers have better credibility to reinforce their mission and purpose, things like that. So when you look at environmental, it's pretty straightforward. We're helping with carbon emissions, which can be talked about, climate change effects. We're helping with pollution and waste disposal. So on the environmental front, I think most people look at R2s as being, like they get it. But I'm telling you that this data governance piece is, I think, probably the biggest opportunity where we haven't really talked into that space, and we have a good opportunity to do that. So here's an example. This was done at C2. We took a few months of the data that we capture about the things that we're processing, like LCD monitors, CRTs, et cetera. And we just captured the weights. And what we did is we worked with Lifecycle Sherlock, who converted this 2.6 million pounds, which basically, from an e-waste perspective, equals 20 metric tons of emissions that were eliminated. So what we could do then is either, if we're on a net zero journey ourselves, we can apply 20 metric tons of savings towards our net zero goals, or we can sell these carbon credits, if you will, to somebody else who's on a net zero goal and they want to buy their way to net zero. So this is a good example of how we can take data analytics and some new reporting to our clients and help them out, if not help ourselves as well. But you have to get, the thing that's important is the granularity of the data that you're capturing in your processes. If you're just grabbing total weight of e-scrapped, but not breaking it down by waste category, because every category has a different emissions profile or carbon offset profile. So this is where, at least at C2, we've always been very good at getting very granular and knowing the weights and the metals and the percentages and all that. So we would strongly encourage everybody to continue to go down the path and get as more and more specific, because the calculators that you find from the EPA and other places, the more specific you can be, usually that translates into higher
yields,
emissions and higher yields.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is huge. I mean, this is such an opportunity for this industry to really demonstrate its value, its consultative value, and go be that partner by asking good questions of your clients to kind of integrate more with their business and become a that consultant versus just a solutions provider for end of life recycling or reuse and ITAD. I mean, this is the stickiness that's going to keep a client satisfied over the long haul.
Absolutely, and again, this helps them with if they're using Net Zero Cloud or some other instrument. This really helps them dial in on their emissions. So from an ITAD perspective, we really have the ability to help our clients in a lot of ways. One is company's reputation. And Steve, I grabbed this off of the Terra website about Home Depot. You look at some massive bad press and huge financial fines if they don't work with a company, an R2 provider, to do it correctly. They've also have, think of the good that we're doing around, carbon emissions, reducing toxic pollutants, et cetera. And we have a very strong story here. And this ties back to, again, the ESG, the company's reputation, and the intrinsic value of that company is based on their reputation. We all know companies that basically lose value in the stock market overnight because of a bad report on something. So these are the things that we help our clients avoid, and that should be part of our story. So from a business development standpoint, these are the types of questions that should be triggering events where you should get real excited. You know, if you ever hear the client, or if you read or you're having a discussion and you see that they have a net zero goal, immediately you should dive right into a conversation about how, as an ITAD, you're going to help them with their net zero goals. If they have to comply with SEC climate disclosures, pretty much if you're a publicly traded company in the US, these regulations by the SEC were voted in a few months ago, where they're having to do climate disclosures, and they need emissions data. They need the kinds of data that we can provide that nobody else can provide for them. If you hear them talking about, you know, disclosing their environmental performances, you read that they've got penalized like Home Depot, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that, from a BD perspective, you should get excited about and say, you know, I can help you with that. The other part is the internal questions, you know, to ask. You know, how are you preparing your company to take advantage of these types of opportunities? These are the types of questions that we would ask ourselves at C2 is, okay, you know, what data do we currently collect, and can we be more granular on what we're collecting? Can we break it down to the next level of information so we can do better data analytics? You know, what kind of reports are we giving to our clients right now versus the ones we think we can add to that? And, you know, maybe start charging, you know, for some new reports that we can be in a unique position to deliver. You know, do we have any domain expertise in-house? You know, do we want to, you know, bring in somebody who can do net zero cloud for our clients, or do we want to get a strategic partner and have them do that on, you know, on our behalf or for us? You know, subcontract that work out. You know, are we as a company, you know, do we have our own net zero goals? Half the time, you know, you know, when we're talking with a client, they're going to say, well, are you doing this, and how are you doing it? You shouldn't have the, you shouldn't go into this conversation not being able to say I'm doing it as well. It's sort of like eat your own cooking. So, you know, that's something you can start very easily. As I said, you know, track mileage of employees, track utility information, start converting that into your own carbon footprint accounting, if you will, and you will be way ahead of the game. And you can talk now with some conviction, if you will. And as everybody knows, sales is the transfer of confidence, and you'll be a lot more confident if you are actually doing some of this stuff yourself. And then year-over-year carbon footprint trends. You know, is your company on a good trend yourselves? That's a story you can tell for your own company. And I think if we're in this industry, you know, we should be, you know, on the front line saying, hey, you know, we are lowering our carbon footprint. We're doing a great job here, and this is why we're able to help you. You know, we're on the same path. So I think that's all I had for you know some of the questions to ask, but happy to open it up to any other thoughts or comments. And if anybody else is going down this path as well, we'd love to hear your comments.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. You know, oh, let's see here. Mike Schuler gonna ask another question. Can you get your contact info? If you should be able to see it on screen, let me know if you don't. His final screen here does have his contact information. Yeah, I think this is just a burgeoning opportunity in so many different directions for this industry. You know, whether it's just going beyond vendor services to be more integrated into the client's daily operations, to creating industry-wide carbon marketplaces where we can where a new revenue stream can come in from reselling this carbon credits that you all are accumulating by bringing this material in. We're at the very beginning of this, and unfortunately, that's what we're Terra's kind of charged with is everybody's thinking about paper, plastic, glass, electricity, the kind of usual things, usual suspects, but electronics continues to kind of fly under the radar screen. So, these companies are clamoring, they're begging for ways to make their numbers look better. And if we can, come to them with a solution on, hey, you're already doing this, you're already investing in this, you're already following best practices. Now here's one more value to it is a big opportunity for everybody. let's see here. Let's see, we got, so Sean Miles, again, RGX, our host next month, has got another question coming in here. Says, very good presentation, Tim. We need to connect. I'd like to review the deck if it's shareable. My quick question is, the Net Zero Cloud only through SF or separate? Not quite sure what your, like, it's the Net Zero Cloud.
What's the question on Net Zero Cloud? Can you read it again?
It says, my question is the Net Zero Cloud only through SF, capital SF, or separate?
Yeah, it's only through Salesforce. So just let's let everybody know, our relationship with Salesforce Net Zero Cloud is through our strategic partner lifecycle, because it's actually it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be, I mean, we're talking like 50 grand a year expensive. And so lifecycle has already, has that set up. So it's actually cheaper just to have them do the tracking, and then carrying that that cost internally. Unless you have many clients that you're going to start doing emissions tracking, you probably don't need to open up your own Salesforce Net Zero Cloud account to do that. It'd probably be better just to work with a company until you're at a point where you feel like you can bite that annual fee off.
Yeah, that could be an opportunity perhaps for Tara to get some, if people might be interested in that, and buying some licenses and reselling them. So this way we can do things at scale, buy multiple licenses at a cheaper rate, and then kind of resell them to our members. So they don't have to go with the full, jump full in with a huge investment. That's something I'm making notes on that.
Yep. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about that, Steve, since we've had some good conversations with Salesforce about it. So.
All right. Well, again, Tim, thank you very much. We're almost up on it. We've got a couple minutes left. Just gives me a moment to say, thank you again, and thank you to all of our members for supporting us here in 2022. We're looking to do some expansion in 2023. Continuing this webinar series is going to be exciting. We're looking to go international next year. We've already got some members that we've kind of been putting on hold with the anticipation that we'll be announcing them in the Q1 as we start looking to expand our membership beyond North America. We see and we hear from you all so often on trying to find new partnerships and creating new relationships with people in different markets. We're just still starting this organization. Really, this is all about you. We're here to promote the idea that certification matters, to build a collegial network for you guys to start working together more in an integrated fashion, help you guys earn more business, help you guys be more successful. So again, we thank you for all that support that we've gotten over these years, and we're looking forward to do more of the same at a faster rate in 2023. So wanted to wish everybody a very blessed and happy holiday season and a wonderful new year, and we'll see you all in 2023. Until then, if anybody has any questions about any of this is going to be the link to this webinar will be sent out to all the attendees. We'll send it out to all of our members. It will be linked and hosted on our GoToWebinar site, so it'll be available for rewatching in the future. But we just want to wish all of you a very blessed new year, and we will talk with you guys in 2023. So take care, everybody.